My name is Arthur. I'm 90 years old, and technically I've won at life. I live in a mansion in Connecticut that most people only see in movies, and the watch on my wrist costs more than the first car you'll ever buy. But I'm not here to brag. In fact, I'm here to confess that I am a deeply unhappy man, and I spend my nights in a silence that money cannot fill. It took me nearly a century to understand what truly matters, and the price I paid for that wisdom was my own family. You might think success is getting to where I am, but I guarantee you, the view from the top is cold when there's no one there to hold your hand. I'm going to give you the next 15 minutes so that you don't have to waste the next 70 years of your life making the same mistakes I did. You still have time to avoid my fate. I wasn't always this tired man you see before you. There was a time when I believed the world fit in the palm of my hand, as long as I was willing to clench my fist tight enough. In my 30s, I didn't see the sun rise. I was already at the office before it was. I convinced myself that every hour of overtime, every business trip that canceled a birthday dinner, and every promotion earned were bricks in the fortress I was building to protect my family. I would look at my wife Linda and say, "Just one more year, honey. Just one more contract, and we'll have the life we've always dreamed of." I thought love was something you deposited into a bank account. I believed, from the bottom of my soul, that being a good father meant ensuring my children never had to worry about the price tag on anything. But the cruel irony is that while I worked to give them everything I never had, I was taking away the only thing I actually had to offer, my presence. Back then, society clapped for me. My friends envied me. I was the textbook definition of a winner, plastered on magazine covers. I felt like the hero of my own story, the relentless provider. But the truth is, I was just building walls that were too high, believing that financial security was a legitimate substitute for human warmth. I was so focused on the peak of the mountain that I never noticed that with every step up, I was becoming more alone. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought time was infinite, and that one day I would have plenty of time to be the father and husband I promised to be. I couldn't have been more wrong. The moment the realization hit me wasn't during a failed business meeting or a stock market crash. It was on an ordinary Tuesday, on my son Mark's 18th birthday. I arrived home late, as usual, carrying a rectangular box wrapped in blue tissue paper, a limited edition Swiss watch that cost me the equivalent of 6 months' rent for an average family. I walked into the dining room expecting fireworks, gratitude, the hug that would validate all my sacrifice at the office. But what I found was silence. The table had already been cleared. Linda was sitting on the sofa, reading, and Mark was standing by the window, staring into nothing. When I held out the gift, he didn't even open the box. He just looked at the object and then at me, with a look that haunts me to this day, a look of complete indifference. He said to me, "Dad, I don't need a watch to tell me what time it is. I needed you to know what time I got home from school for the last 10 years. In that instant, the gold pen in my pocket felt like it weighed a ton. I realized that all the money I had accumulated couldn't buy a single minute of the real connection I had lost. I was a stranger inside my own mansion, the hospital where he was born, the steps where he learned to walk. I had photos of it all, but no memory of actually being there. The material success I displayed to the world was, in fact, the receipt of my bankruptcy as a father. The silence of Kahat Room was louder than any applause I ever received on Wall Street. There, surrounded by luxury furniture and imported art, I understood. The perfection I was seeking was, in truth, a glass prison. After that night with Mark, I began to dissect my life like a surgeon searching for a tumor. I needed to understand where the logic of the successful man had failed so miserably. The conclusion I reached is the most expensive lesson I've ever learned. We were taught that providing is the ultimate form of love. But the truth is that provision without presence is nothing more than a financial transaction. I was paying the bills, but I was defaulting on my family's soul. Perfection is a prison. I spent decades trying to build a life that looked flawless on the outside. The perfectly manicured lawn, the cars in the garage, the reputation of someone who never fails. But on the inside, the walls were rotting. The profound mistake I made, and that I see so many of you making now in your 20 seconds, 30 seconds, or 40 seconds, is believing that time is a resource you can negotiate. You think, I'll work hard now so I can enjoy it later. But later is a mirage. A child's heart doesn't wait for your promotion to grow. A wife's love doesn't stay preserved in the freezer, waiting for your year-end bonus. I realized that authority doesn't come from how much you've accumulated, but from how much you were able to give up for the sake of what is eternal. I gave up dinners, first steps, and trivial Sunday conversations. In exchange, I received property titles. Do you know what those titles do for me today? Nothing. They don't give me a goodnight hug. They don't laugh at my jokes. The deep lesson is that regret is the highest interest rate you will ever pay in life. And the worst part, it's a debt you cannot settle with money. I tried to buy forgiveness with inheritances and jewelry, but real forgiveness requires a currency I had already spent entirely at the office: quality time. If you are hearing this now, understand, your value is not in what you provide, but in how much you remain. Today, I live in what I call my elegant solitude. My house is a triumph of architecture, but every empty hallway seems to amplify the sound of my own footsteps. I have an oak table that can seat 20 people, but most nights I dine alone to the sound of silverware clinking against porcelain plates. It is a heavy silence, one that no blaring television or ambient music can disguise. My children call me, it's true, but they are short, formal calls, almost as if they are checking a task off a crowded schedule. They ask about my health, talk about the weather, and hang up in less than 5 minutes. There is no intimacy. There are none of those inside jokes that only families who spent time together possess. I am merely the distant patriarch who financed their lives, but is not a part of them. The weight of what if is my most constant companion now. What if I had gone to that school play instead of closing that deal in Chicago? What if I had put the phone aside to listen to what Linda had to say about her fears? I look at the photos on the walls and see faces of people I should know deeply, yet they are strangers to me. I have the success everyone seeks, but I would trade every penny and every award on the shelf for the chance to step back into one of those photos and, this time, truly be present in it. Wealth gave me comfort, but it robbed me of belonging. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel sorry for an old man in a big house. I'm telling you this because I see you. I see you checking your emails during dinner. I see you justifying your absence by saying you're building a future. But let me ask you a question that no one in your office will have the courage to ask. What is the point of conquering the whole world if, at the end of the day, you have no one to come home to? Your boss won't remember that you worked until 10 at night 5 years from now. He will replace you in a week if you drop dead tomorrow. But your son, Your son will forever remember the empty chair at his graduation.
Your wife will remember the silence you allowed to grow between you. Do not inherit my success if the price for it is your soul.
Go home today. Turn off your phone. Look into the eyes of the people you claim to love and be present. Don't wait until you're 90, surrounded by useless trophies, to discover that life doesn't happen in the major milestones, but in the small spaces between them. The urgency isn't for tomorrow, it's for right now. The clock doesn't stop for anyone, not even for those with enough money to buy the whole factory. Change the script of your life while you still hold the pen. I cannot go back in time and fill the empty spaces of my own story. For me, the silence of this house is the final price. But you still have the chance to write a different ending. Redemption isn't about fixing the past, but rather not wasting the present you hold in your hands right now. It took me 90 years to understand that true wealth isn't what you leave for others, but what you leave inside them while you are still here. If you've made it this far, perhaps it's because you feel your own clock is ticking too fast. Don't let this video be just another piece of content you consume and forget in 5 minutes. Use my regret as your map. If you want to learn how to build a life that is actually worth living, and not just a career that is worth displaying, subscribe here. Let's walk together to ensure that, when you reach my age, the only noise in your house is the laughter of those you love, and not the echo of regret. Choose to be present. Choose what is real. Thank you for listening.